boys and girls. Welcome back. Hope you're enjoying your summer here, July 20th, 2025. This is a special Isles Talk draft review with Shane Malloy. Shane got some very well earned vacation time after the draft, and we're very happy to have him back and have him talk about how he felt the Islanders were did at the draft, along with the NHL and everything else. So, Shane, welcome back again, and thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me on the show. It's going to be great fun, and yeah, I got a little bit of time off, but I had to record four draft review shows, so that's 8 hours, and then
Oh,
I did a bunch of the draft efficiency stuff as well. So I hammered out a bunch of shows, and I had to do a bunch of free agency stuff too. Some player comp evaluations and stuff like that, and their compensation evaluation. So yeah, then I got a little bit of time away with the family, and right back at it again. It doesn't.
there you go.
Oh
The
yeah,
job never ends for Mr. Malloy.
no, it does not.
So, before we jump into the Islanders, I want your overall thoughts on the NHL draft. A lot of people who put out their rankings and whatnot, they want to see if they're fairly close to what the general managers were going to pick, and I just wanted your overall thought, as the draft went on, and how you felt that draft ended up.
Well, it's always an interesting dynamic. When I put out my list, I have zero interest in um, being accurate to what happens in real life. That's not how I judge the validity or the accuracy or the value of my list. I'm not interested in that. So if my picks were dead on or they were 10 spots off, I don't care.
Right.
That's not what how I value. I value it based on sort of games played criteria. So my minimum criteria, like the base level to make it, is 200 games to play. So if I look back at a past draft and there were, say, hypothetically 60 players played more than 200 games plus, I want to know is how many of those 60 players did I have in my top 60? That's what I gauge it on. Like how many players did I identify correctly to play more than 200 games in NHL and actually bang out a career? That's what I'm interested in. Because if you're just following along with the NHL teams, well, if you look at historical average, well, that's not very good. So if you said, "Oh, why? Well, we mean this other team got this player at the same spot." Okay, but is that player going to play?
Mhm.
Right? Like it's great that you like guessed that or it happened to be in the same range, but it doesn't mean anything unless the player isn't prospect turns into an actual NHL player. So for me, it's about trying to figure that out. So when I look back, I had a top 65 list, but I only thought 50 players were going to play 200 games. I thought it was the quantity was below average. So I'll go back and take a look at it, 5, 6, 7 years later, and I'll look at it and okay, how many players hit this games played criteria, and how many of those did I have in my top 50, and I'll gauge myself on that and hope for the best. And that's how you learn because then there's like as it's progressing, I
That
start
is
using
feedback.
yeah, I do
Yeah.
feedback loops, right? As they're
Right.
progressing through to that 5 year point. Then I start actually assessing it. And things really generally don't play out to about 7 years
So,
altogether.
so
It's
in
a
other
really
words, in the 2000 season, Shane, you're going to be having celebratory cookies if your percentage was good when you
yeah,
find out this year.
yeah. I mean, my cookies won't be cookies, but it will be celebratory.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
Beautiful.
how I gauge myself in terms of understanding the type of players that actually play, but
Right.
then not just judging them and scouting them for their on ice, but their off ice and the environment that's impacted and what attributes apply to the NHL. Like what happens on the ice in terms of their skill sets, but also if I find ways to judge them on a cognitive level of understanding like how they handle pressure, how
Hmm.
they handle their internal pressure, how do they handle situations. Like you can start you every player and every person leaves breadcrumbs to help understand that. And so I try to judge them when in their draft year in the most difficult circumstances I can find. and then like I start watching those games specifically and what
And
you do. So if you're a player in the CHL, how do you perform in back-to-back nights on the road, particularly against teams above 500, above 600, above 700 winning percentage? How do you fare in those situations when the top D pairings against you and you're playing against the top line, or you're having to defend as a defenseman against the top lines consistently? How do you handle those situations in a really tough environment? And that gives me a better indicator of whether I think they're going to play or not.
I think that what it sounds like too, Shane, again, from someone that's not necessarily tuned into it, is that every player, say in your top 60 list, has a different set of attributes for themselves. In other words, for player A, it could be completely different from player B based on the type of player they are, where they're playing, how they're playing, and all that other stuff rolls in.
Sure, there's a tremendous amount of different variables. Obviously, position, playing style. What does the coach ask them to do? What system they're playing in? Who are their like strength of competition, strength of line mates, or organization? What is the organization is like? What's the coaching system? What's that environment like? Like, there's a whole bunch of these different variables, but there are obviously skilled attributes, and then there's the more mental emotional attributes that you're trying to gauge from the player. And people will tell you who they are if you're paying attention, and it takes a long time to sort of like push away the noise. That's the biggest thing, is once
Mhm.
you sort of figure that out when you're evaluating, is just to sort of alleviate noise and really look at the root cause of a player. It gives you like, I don't put it in terms of right and wrong. It's about probability. It's a percentage.
Mhm.
I'm like, what's the probability of this? Like, I think in bets. What's the probability of this player playing? So
Right.
if you're looking at my summary and my scouting report, I will have a percentage of what I think what's the chance that player playing 200 games or more. And then say it's a defenseman, if they play in their peak years of say 23 to 31, 24 to 31, where do they play in the lineup if it's a defenseman? So I put a probability scale of that, like 1 through 7, right? Okay, in their peak years, this is where they're going to start, they're going to peak, plateau, and then descend, right? So then I have an understanding of where I think they're going to play somewhere in the lineup. It's a little bit sounds probably a little bit more complicated than it deserves to be, but I try to simplify everything into probability scales. It's just I find it much easier to calculate what's really, and then it helps me actually go back and reverse engineer it. So that helps too, because I put numerical value of the skill sets. Then there's all the written stuff too, and then there's analytics and statistical analysis and all the other stuff that goes along with it.
Right, right, right.
In other words, he's got a hell of an Excel file.
It is ridiculous. Like, I'm not kidding. If I showed you, you'd probably go blind, right? So I really actually have to isolate it, and I do. So originally I built a performance management system for myself because I was working for EA for 18 years. So I worked for EA Sports. I did all the player ratings for the NHL, the American League, and the CHL by myself. There wasn't a team. There was just me. So
Oh
I had
boy.
no. I'm not kidding, gentlemen. I had no oversight and I had no safety net. So I just gave them results. They had no idea how I actually compiled it. So I actually built out a whole performance management system for myself to protect myself from myself, because I'm my
From
biggest
yourself.
problem, right? And then I just sort of expanded it and built it into a hockey operations system. So it became much more elaborate. Like, on the back end, it's looks confusing and complex, but then on the front surface, it's much more simplified, right? And it's just user friendly in terms of its ability to comprehend what's going on there. But behind the scenes, it's just a scale of numbers and weightings, and yeah,
Percentages. Got it.
it took me forever to like learn how to code that properly because I didn't take
Ah,
coding. So I watched a
right.
lot of YouTube. And I swore a lot, so I peeled the paint off my office a lot, so it just didn't work. But I found, just
Right.
if then statements, once you sort of figure that out, you can start to actually replicate those, and
Right.
it's not as complex. It's just getting to the root, the number, that initial one. and then starting to replicate that and just trying to get it down to one number. So if you saw it
Right.
in EA, it got down to one number. Well, there was a calculation for that.
Wow, it's amazing.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, I learned it the
All
hard
right.
way. A lot of swearing.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Trial and error.
Well,
Lot of trial and error. Yeah.
all right. So let's simplify this show for you now. Just the Islanders here now. We're not going to cover the rest of the NHL. Um, this, Gary and I will agree to disagree on some of the things that happened, but overall, from the purity and the draft of itself, um, how did you think the Islanders did uh, when draft weekend was over?
Well, do we want to separate Matthew Schaefer from this conversation? Because I think he's
Yes,
a
please.
foregone conclusion. Now, I'll say this
Yes.
about the young man. I couldn't have been more impressed with his grace and dignity and his level of maturity and his self awareness. It was like I was talking to a 40-year-old man who has lived a long life and has had a lot of road rash. It was so impressive. Like he came because we were doing radio live for Sirius XM for NHL Network Radio. So he came and spoke with myself and Steve Coolidge and Scott Lachlan, and we had our arms around him, and he was talking, and he couldn't have been more impressive as a young man. Like that, he has captain material stamped all over him. People are going to follow him on purpose because he just
Yeah.
gets it. He gets what it is to be a man at a really young age and what it is to be a leader. And, what really jumped out to me about him specifically was his understanding is like, if he's a leader, he's not in charge. He's responsible for everybody else to make sure that everybody else can do their job great. That's his job. And so I was like, he's a foregone conclusion because I think he's going to potentially be an all-star player. But as you look down the rest, particularly their two picks, obviously, that they got from Montreal in the Dobson trade,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would say, and then the big Russian Daniil Prokhorov.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I think the Islanders had one of the best drafts in terms of value. And it's a style of player. So if you look at Victor Eklund and Kashawn Atchison, you look at them both, it's like Mutt and Jeff. Like they're nothing alike in terms of their size, the position they
Right.
play, except for a couple really critical factors is their emotional and mental and cognitive abilities. They are both super highly competitive. They're both dogs on the bone. They're both the kind of players that will dig in the playoffs, and they have grit and tenacity. They just do it in different ways. So we'll start with Victor Eklund. I had him seventh overall. I don't think he should have dropped that far. I understand why he did because one, he's a winger, and two, he's small. But he doesn't know he's small. He has that small brother syndrome, and he's always had to fight his way up, and he is greasy in that respect. He goes to the dirty areas. He battles for loose pucks. He goes in for pucks. He doesn't care how big you are. He's going to battle you, and he's going to be the type of player as a small winger. I generally am not like, obviously small wingers don't generally play in the NHL, but however, this is a player that I would want in the playoffs based on his mentality. He's coming at you, whether you like it or not. He's going to be a bit of a pest and a pain in the ass, and he's going to dog pucks. And he's a guy who could put up 70, might be able to put up 70 points a year for you, no problem. Like he end up might being a 35-35 guy for you and producing the playoffs. So I thought that was great value. And then Kashawn Atchison, who I had at 13. So both these players are like above my range. Atchison is, and this isn't like saying in a mean way, is he's a predator. Like what you want in your team to win in the playoffs, you want bastards. You want guys that are like gonna come in and they're gonna punch you in the face and they're gonna smile at you and you're gonna look at him. They're gonna look back at you dumbfounded and then you're gonna punch him in the face again. Like he's an
Yes.
absolute predator. He reminds me a lot of Jacob Trouba in that respect. Is if you don't know where he is on the ice, you're going to get
You're in
knocked out.
trouble. Right.
And
Mhm.
he has the same mentality as Mike Singletary or Dick Butkus. Is
Wow.
the forward's going to come back, and he told us this, like not particularly this story, but this is what it reminds me of. Is I remember watching NFL films, and Mike Singletary said, "When I hit the running back, I want him to go to back of the huddle, and he's going to say, 'I never want to go in that way again. I never want to do that again.'" That's Ashenson. You come into my corner or into my part of the rink, I'm taking my pound of flesh. And I'm going to do it every time. And what that brings is that element of unpredictability. You don't know if he's going to drive you first into the boards, or he's going to punch you in the face, or he's going to time it and knock you out. He doesn't hit to knock players off the puck. He hits you to knock you out of the game. To knock you out of the game. And he's happy to drop the gloves. So if he hits somebody and somebody drops the gloves, he's happy to do it, and he can swing them. So he's a throwback. He's a 1980s, early 90s throwback defenseman. Now, I don't think his points are going to be replicated, but he has got a bomb for a shot. So if you put him on a power play, on a second unit power play, and you feed him pucks, he's going to hammer pucks at the net. And people are going to they're going to let the seize apart because he can hammer it. So those two picks in the middle of the first round, what it sets the Islanders up for is an identity. We're going to play a certain way. You're going to come into the island and you're going to hate it. The fans are going to be crazy, and we're going to make you pay for every piece of inch, because this is how they're going to play. Like, they're going to set an identity. And Schaefer, although doesn't play that way, he will
That's going
embrace
to
it.
rub off on him, though.
Well, it will. It'll rub off on him, similar to what happens with Florida. But he also is going to be a guy who encourages that in his teammates, right? Because he understands the value of it. He's a really smart kid. And then you add to that is Daniil Prokhorov, who's 6'6". He's a monster. The kid's a monster. Now,
Mhm.
he's another guy who plays with a physical edge and is happy to go. He's got a little bit of that Torpachenko out of St. Louis kind of a feel to him, except he has a higher offensive upside. The one thing I like about Prokhorov is the kid can shoot the puck. He can score goals. He's a little bit too one-dimensional for my liking at this time. He's going to have to. It's not necessarily for him to increase his playmaking rates, which would be helpful. His passing rates, he just has to use his teammates more effectively. What he really needs to do is understand the value of the give and go, because that's all he really needs to do. Because he can come steamrolling, all 6'6", 225 pounds of him, down the wing with the puck, and it's going to force the defense and forwards to converge on him, and then he dishes it, and then drives right to the net like a locomotion, like a big freight train. And then you throw the puck back at him or at the net, and he's just going to run everybody over to get there, right? Like, it's just imagine him on one side, and then you have Victor Eklund on the other, like. But then you couple that with another goal scorer in Cole Eiserman.
Yep.
Like, I really like what the Islanders have done in terms of their identity. They got guys who can score, just score goals. Goal scoring is a premium in this league, but they also got guys who play with an edge and a nastiness that most players don't go to. And you don't have to be big, but it helps. But it's a willingness, and these players have a willingness to play that way. And I look at, you get into the Romanos and down a little bit farther. I know that Brad, my co-host, liked Blake Hood as a potential backup. He thought he was a bit of a late pick as a goalie that something may happen. But I
Right.
really think their first four picks, that just set the stage for their entire franchise moving forward. Their entire franchise. And then you're adding in, obviously, Danny Nelson and Cole Eiserman and Jesse Pulkkinen, and they got another center they got at the trade deadline too as well. So out of Colorado,
Yep.
so you add him into the mix. So I think there's a nice, and hopefully maybe Kelly O'Douley's can play as a third pairing. But you're
Yes.
starting to collect a nucleus of young players that will be building blocks for a decade. It's the first time I've said this about the Islanders in a decade. Honestly, it's the first time where I thought, oh, hey, there's a formidable farm system going on here. So they got a massive advantage of obviously getting first overall and jumping, and that was huge. But what they did with those picks, they could have easily traded Dobson and totally screwed it up. They could have taken, they could have went the way of Pittsburgh, which I wasn't like. I was I had some question marks about what they did with their picks. I'd much rather have had Eklund and Atchison
Right.
than what they did. So for Islander fans, hey, you might end up sticking it to the Penguins on that one.
Beautiful.
Well, let me just give a quick
Go
correlation
ahead.
on something else. It's going back to Schaefer. For all the people that'll be watching this after when it gets put out live, the Mets just retired David Wright the other day, and there was a 2-hour show on SNY, and hopefully it's on YouTube if you don't get to see it, called The Right Way. And they were talking to him as a teenager in Virginia as he was getting ready to either go the college route or go the baseball professional route. And every quote you heard from him was exactly, and I mean exactly, the type of kid that Mathew Schaefer seems like he was showing in his interviews. It was the exact same model. And if he goes, if Matt Schaefer is 1/10 of what David Wright was to his organization, then again, you've got a generational talent
Well,
development system. I'll tell you, it was just amazing just listening to David and just putting the correlations between the two perfectly.
I'm looking forward to watching that and sort of comparing the two. I'm glad you brought that up for me. I'm going to actually go take a look at that. And I know we can look at the on ice talent and go, okay, this player should project as X. And do I think he has potential to be an all star defenseman? Yes. But I think what provides even a greater value to the organization is who he is as a person.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to rally to him. His teammates are going to rally to him because of who he is. He's going to be a glue to that locker room and that organization. And the fans are going to love him. The kids are going to love him. Like, I think it's an opportunity, and I know, like, there hasn't been as much marketing around players. I don't even want to use marketing. It's not even the right word. But just allowing those players to get into the community more. Schaefer's going to be in the community all the time. They're going
Yeah.
to love him for that.
Yeah.
And he's just when you meet a person, he's just a generally nice person, a nice guy. Like, he's just like that. And for someone who's gone through the tragedies he's got a great positive attitude. He's like, for him, it's not about proving people wrong. It's about proving people right that believed in him. And his mentality is infectious. It's hard not to get up for a game, or you can't feel sorry for yourself when you're around a guy like that. Like, you have no business feeling sorry for yourself.
Right.
Right? So I think that provides just as much value to the organization as what he does on the ice. Like, I was really impressed. I'm rarely impressed like that with players because they're still very young, and a lot of stuff they say is manufactured. You got to dig in, and that wasn't the case with him. So that's what I think is going to be. And I hope he turns out to be a David Wright for this organization.
Yeah.
I got buddies that are Met fans, and they love David Wright. So for the Islander fans, I hope he's as great as David Wright was to the Mets organization as he's going to be to the Islanders. And I think he will be. I think he will be. Just be patient because he's still young. Like, he's a
Thank
young
you.
kid, right? And he's got to gain some weight. And so I'm not
Thank you.
I'm not saying that all of a sudden he's going to come out and throw up 70 points as a rookie, as an 18-year-old. Like, let's be careful
Thank
here.
you.
Because remember, he does not have Dobson there now, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, I was going to ask this, and I'm on I think I'm on record, but I'm going to say this now, just so that way I'm covering myself. I don't even want Matthew Schaefer playing the first 9 games of this season strictly because he only played 17 games last year, literally last year, and a prospect game.
If I
I
could
don't
get it,
even care.
I
I
get
don't
it.
even care if he's 185. That's still, he's 6'4". I'm nervous like that. I don't want to see him playing professionally for 9 games, like you said. I don't want to call it marketing, but let's face it,
Well,
he'll
that's not
sell
gonna.
2,000.
Unfortunately, that's
He
not
will
gonna happen.
sell, right. He will sell 2,000 jerseys by by the time game 9 is there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want this kid anywhere near the NHL this coming season.
Well, he's coming, and
I know.
I mean, look, in an ideal world,
I know.
he would go play college for a year. In an
Thank you.
ideal world,
Right.
to play
Right.
against kids that are on average 21 and a half years age. Get out of the
I know.
CHL. Nothing wrong with the CHL, but he's playing
No.
against 18 and a half year old. If he would have played the whole season, he probably would have
Oh, I have a
80,
completely different view on it. No
yeah,
doubt.
88 points, 90 points, like as a
Thank you.
defenseman,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Right.
the difference between the CHL player average age is 18 and a half years of age. College hockey is 21 and a half on average. He could go play in Hockey East, right? Or the Big Ten and go
Right.
play a season against young men and then go to the NHL, but that's not going to happen. He's going to play in the NHL right away, and they'll have to insulate him. So he's going to have to play with either,
Pull up.
Polak probably. I mean,
Pull up.
that's the best insulator for him. That he'll protect him, not physically, but just protect him. Because he's going to make mistakes. He's a young defenseman. All young defensemen do. But that would probably make the most sense. And then you have another pairing that can log some heavy minutes too. So he's fine. The advantage for the Islanders, even with Dobson gone, they have a pretty solid defense core, right? So it's not like he's being thrown to the wolves and
Right.
going, all right, 18-year-old kid, like figure it out yourself, and we have a bunch of journeymen with you. That's not the case. And
Right.
he's got a very, very good to excellent goaltender behind him who's going to cover up for him once in a while. So I think he's going to be fine.
Gary, you got a question?
No, actually, I was just going to make a comment because I went to the blue and white scrimmage game that they finally brought back after 7 years, which was fantastic. And getting 3,000 people in a building in the middle of June or beginning of July to see a bunch of kids play was just fantastic. And from our conversations and what you said about him, I kind of looked at him in a different manner when I was watching that game because obviously you're not looking for superstar moves and all these things. But I kept looking to see what happened if he made a small mistake, or if he covered somebody the wrong way, how his recovery was. And to me, that's what impressed me. And that's why I say to him, I'm on the other side saying I have a feeling he's gonna go to the NHL when Paul says he doesn't want him.
Oh,
Because
yeah. Oh, it's happening. He's going to
I just think he's got a very innate ability to make a mistake look like it really wasn't a mistake.
the
And
advantage.
those things you don't see a lot in a lot of kids that age.
Well, the advantage for him is one, he has elite hockey sense. His ability to process some information is at elite level. Second, which is especially important for him, is his skating ability is elite.
Mm.
So he's able to his game defensively is going to be predicated on taking away time and space. His skating ability to get there faster, and then his gap, his angle, and his stick position. He's just going to take away time and space. And then his puck retrievals are so good because of his skating ability, he's going to be able to create time and space for himself there. Like a second saved is a second earned. So
Mm-hmm.
he's not going to get hammered consistently on a forecheck. So we don't have to worry. That doesn't have to worry as much. So he's able to slide his way from contact. Not that he's going to avoid it on purpose, but why the hell do you want to get hit if you don't have to get hit? Right? It's wear and tear. So his entire game is based on creating time and space and taking away time and space with his intelligence and his skating ability. So that's the type of defenseman I expect him to be, and you can put him on a number one power play unit right now. Like what's the worst going to happen? He's going to produce points. Like he's that smart of a player, and I don't think they have anybody that can quarterback a power play better than him anyway on the roster. Like who? Do you guys think there's somebody better on that roster is going to be better at quarterbacking a power play, even at his
No,
at his young age?
no,
Wait, say that again, Paul.
no.
I,
Hey, Paul, I understand your reservation. If it was it was a different situation, I'd send him to college. I really
no,
would.
I truthfully, I do
If
too.
they didn't trade, Dobson, I think they legitimately could have said to him, "Hey, why don't you go to Penn State? Go play with go
McKenna.
play with McKenna,
Go
or
play with
go to
McKenna.
Michigan, or go to BU, or go to BC just for a year, right? Let's get your real 40 hard games in against young men. Don't worry about the 68 games in the CHL because pretty much 28 of them are you're playing against lesser teams at home and you're just pounding them anyway. And apply your trade there and then come up and play. But because they moved Dobson, they can't. He has to play. They need him. So they'll
I
insulate him.
right.
Like that's the one advantage of having a goalie as your head coach is he understands how to take care of defensemen. So that's going to help in that respect, and they'll insulate him. So I expect him. I wouldn't be shocked that he's fighting for Rookie of the Year. He's going to play a ton of minutes. He's going to play 22 minutes, 23 minutes a game, and he's going to get first unit power play, and he's getting lots of opportunity. Like I know, Paul. I totally understand your sentiment. I agree with your sentiment. I'm just telling you what's going to happen,
I
and
know.
yeah, it's going to be like Drew Doughty all over again. He's just not as big as Drew, but it's going to be like Drew Doughty all over again. Because he's that smart and he's if he wasn't such a great skater, I'd be nervous. But he's such a great skater. He's going to get himself out of a lot of trouble. And he's going to be insulated with a defenseman that will take care of him. So I think like Matthew Darsh and his group are smart enough to understand what they need to do to protect that asset because he's a franchise player.
No, and everything you said, I agree with. I just, we've seen this before, and
Well,
we've seen prospects rush, and I know Schaefer's probably going to be the
hey, look,
exception. I'm hoping he's the exception, but
I agree. Look, I don't like Russian
I
prospects either. But most of the time, when you get a first overall pick or a second overall pick, your team is bad, and you can't insulate them the way the Islanders can insulate them.
right,
That doesn't happen very often. So
right,
them jumping up those 10 spots, like yeah, they didn't make the playoffs and they were the 11th worst team, but they were like take away some bad injuries and they're fighting for a playoff spot.
right,
Like they're in
right.
that mix. Like
Yeah,
they are like fighting for a wild card spot. So they're not a bad team. They're not like like Chicago was when they drafted Bedard. They're not
no,
like that,
no,
right? Or the
no,
Sharks with Celebrini. They're and their defenses and they got a goaltender and a defense core that can insulate them. That matters more than anything. So that changes my trepidation about having him in the lineup early. Normally, I'm with you, Paul. I'm like, forget this. Keep
yeah,
this
I know,
kid out of here. And
yeah.
I'm super conservative when it comes to developing prospects. But in his case, I think that it's the right fit for him to succeed as an 18-year-old kid in the NHL. If it
It, it,
was if it was San Jose, I'd be like,
yeah.
I'd be a little bit worried about that. You know,
And is it
Even if
because
he
is it
played,
necessarily? Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I mean, even if he played all the way through the World Junior Championships and then he got injured in March, I would still be okay. Let's bring him up because he's already dominated the CHL. It's just those 17 games, and it's
yeah.
just
I
like,
mean, he put up
and then
20
we're bringing
points.
him into the NHL, and I'm just like,
I saw him at the World Juniors live. He was the best player on the ice. Tell you
yeah,
that hurt.
that's what I mean.
He was
Yeah,
legitimately the best player on the ice. Like
yeah,
he was that good. So it's uh,
I know.
it's why a kid who plays 17 games in the regular season and a couple games in the World Juniors is still the first overall pick.
Right, I know.
You know,
I
it's
know.
just
I know.
yeah. So don't worry. Like,
I'm
look,
I'm just
Injuries
gonna
happen.
cringe this entire. I know. I'm just gonna cringe this entire season. I'm gonna cringe.
We'll try
It's
to
just
enjoy it a little.
no. I'm
You
gonna
know.
try to enjoy it, but oh man.
Shane, it's a
Oh,
good thing he lives about 100 and plus miles away from UBS, or I'd probably lose my mind.
no. You. I can still make you lose your mind. Calm down.
Yeah, true.
Either way, listen. Shane, real quick before we let you go. Um, I wanted to get your thoughts on when everything is done with the draft, everyone in the media come out with their new prospect rankings and whatnot, and the Islanders had jumped up, and I personally I don't look at the rankings per se. I know for me it feels more like entertainment value because now they really have to put in the work. The kids really have to put in the work. They got to go through the American League or they got to go through college and whatnot. So I wanted to get your thoughts on prospect rankings in general. How much should fans really pay attention to that?
Well, obviously, it depends on the source, of course.
Right?
Um, how much experience they have in not only evaluating players but understanding player development and the cycle they're in. Now, I've done these in the past. This isn't new to me. I haven't done them in. I think the last time I did them was 2008. So
Oh
it's been
boy.
quite a while,
Right?
almost 20 years. But I understand the process of it. And look, if I was working for a network, I'd be fully expected. I would be having to do that too. I just do it in a way of understanding. Okay, part of it's especially the newer kids, the kids that are just drafted, 25 and 24. There's far more projection involved. So, say if you're doing hypothetically a top 10, I don't think you could
Sure.
probably get away with more than a top 10 in any organization. Maybe San Jose, but most teams would have a hard time squeezing out 10 players, in that grouping, say in a 4-year period. But I always look at is okay, the first 2 years there's a lot of projection out, and then the other players are already into the American League or far along into college. So, there might be 20, 21, maybe even 22 in that respect. So, what I find really interesting is you're trying to balance between the projection of a player who's young and then players who are more established already, and trying to balance what that value is going to be. Because in the end of the day, depending on what your criteria is, because each person could have a different criteria. Mine was really based on what I did. I like to do was have what's the projection of the player in their peak years, as I talked about. And that's going to really, and then what's the probability of them playing? What's their position value? What's their playing style value? Because just because they're a defenseman, they could be more valuable than all the wingers because maybe it's a 2-way 6'4" skating defenseman. Well,
Right?
that value is going to push them up. So it just really depends on the criteria that is being used, who's doing it, how much experience they have, and whether they have really sound. Like, I always look at their method and methodology. Okay, how do you rank this? What's your criteria? Because that really
Right?
helps me establish what it is. So if it's kind of like convoluted or it's not really precise, I look for precise. Like, so if somebody
Okay.
says he's going to be a middle six forward, I hate that term. It drives me nuts because that's saying an F4 to, I don't know, an F9. Well, I could drive a
Sure.
semi truck through that, right? That's massive. So, like, I like to know, okay, what do you project them as? An F9, an F8, an F7, a 7-8, an F7-8? A 5-6 winger? Like, what's your projection in here? So I then have a better understanding. Because if you just say middle six, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
Like, there's 6 possible positions to play. And then, like, one guy's making 7 million, one guy's making 1.5 million, right? Like, there's a big difference there, right? You just like to me it's a nebulous term. So same with the defense core. Like, I like to, even if you're going to be wrong, try to be as precise as possible, you know, and probably a little bit more conservative. I just find if you
Right?
kind of swing, there's too many of the people that do it. Like, not too many people, but there are people that kind of swing too wildly and make sort of wild proclamations. Kind of want to dial that back really to the middle. It's what I learned over, like, getting my ass whipped a bunch of
Right?
times. I'm like,
Right?
oh, right, like, you can't say everybody's going to be a superstar because that's just not the probability. Like if you
Right.
look at the probability of like how many of X players are in every part of the NHL, well, you can kind of figure out the probability of a player and where they're going to fit in the grand scheme of things. Like everybody's not going to be a superstar. There might be, I don't know, 5% of the league is a superstar, right? So,
Right.
when you have a superstar or on every one of your team's like rankings, that's probably not realistic.
Hmm.
So, you know, I look at from that standpoint. Doesn't mean I won't like I have buddies who do them and I'll peek at them and I go, okay, that's really interesting. And maybe we'll end up having a conversation about what they saw because their perception and perspective are totally different than mine, right? And what
Right.
I value might be different from what they value. So that's why, rankings, whether it be for the draft or for prospects, are always going to be different. But that's always kind of like my advice if you're going to try to like thumb yourself through those things. Just really look at the criteria first and foremost.
Right.
And I tend to trust people who've done the job before. That's always helpful. It doesn't mean they're perfect, but
Right.
so if I look at a guy like say Jason Bukala does it, he's a director of amateur scouting. He is not outlandish in any of his proclamations of projections. He's pretty fair. So that's what I tend to look for.
Beautiful. Gary, did we miss anything else?
No, I think we got it all covered. I'm pretty
Did we miss anything, Shane?
yeah.
Oh, we could talk about prospects and stuff for hours. So like we're
we
always missing stuff. But hey, look, if I'm an Islanders fan, I'm pretty excited about what's coming in the future. And none of it's ready. I mean, Schaefer's ready, but you look at Danny Nelson and Cole Eiserman and you know the additions, Jesse Polkin and the additions they made this year, and like maybe Adulius comes in place too. Like at least they have a group. And they're going to do it again next year. They're going to keep building, right? They're not going to trade away draft picks.
no,
So
no, no, no.
I'd be pretty excited about, what this team is going to look like in 5 years when, guys are 23, 24, 25. That young core is together and they're
Right.
just starting to enter their prime.
Right.
That building's going to be rocking, right? You're going to have to find another
Right.
goalie. I'm not sure your
Yeah.
goalie's going to last 5 more years, so you're going to have to find that. But you're certainly going to have enough talent in that organization to build around. So it's exciting for
Yeah. So
Islander fans.
let's temper that just a smidge. Eklund and company this year. If you were to give them a time range to at least get into the American League, would it be a year? Would it be 2 years?
Oh, I would certainly, I'd give Ashton his 2 years. D
Okay.
take a while, and they need it. He has some
Of course.
refinement that he needs to do, only because he just got to learn to pick his spots better. But that comes with coaching, and I'm not concerned.
Correct.
And then with Eklund, is look, he's already playing against men, so he's in Durgarden. So that adjustment won't be as difficult for him. But I'd still say 2 years too. There's no reason to
Okay.
rush them, right?
Thank
There's
you.
there's no reason to rush any of them.
No, I agree
Oh,
with you,
When it
that
comes
Paul.
to like
right. I
comes to
know.
Danny Nelson and Cole Eiserman and like any of the guys that you've had
College. Right.
college, put them in college, leave them there, then put them a year in Bridgeport. I heard, maybe leaving, but um,
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe
maybe
Hamilton. Yeah.
maybe Hamilton, but leave him in there. The American Hockey League is it's good for those guys to get in there for a year. The other great thing is they get to go in there together.
Yes.
There's a really
Yeah.
important factor about the building that camaraderie as a young group that you did it together. Like you went and battled together
That's
in
Washington. That's what
yeah,
Washington did
they
with
do it
Hershey.
in Hershey all the time. Providence does it with the Bruins.
Bruins.
Like there
Dallas.
are Dallas does that in
When
Texas.
you even look at what our club with Bridgeport in the years back, when you had Nelson and you had Lee and you had
Yeah,
Mayfield and you had all those
yeah,
guys coming up together at the same time too.
yeah.
Right.
So it can work.
No, it's really actually really important. It's a bonding for them too as well
Right.
to go come up together, right?
Right.
Because when they're up in the NHL eventually, yeah, that's really really important. Talk about Mayfield. Um, he was a guy I remember him. I did the color commentary for color guy for the Junior A Challenge when he played in Penticton, and he was defenseman, and he was the best defenseman there. He only had one goal against in the entire tournament, and it was a power play goal against him. So the whole tournament, he had only had one goal against him. It was a power play goal, and that was when Mikhail Grigorenko was there, and all the scouts are fawning over him. And I got to
Sure.
choose the tournament MVP, and I chose Scott Mayfield. And the scouts yelled at me for a week straight. And then they would see me later and yelling at me. And then it was about, I don't know, 4 years ago. I'm like, I saw a couple of scouts that were bitching at me about it. I'm like, hey, so where's Grigorenko?
Where's Gregorenko?
Yeah,
Where
Mayfield's
is
still
he?
playing. So
Where is he?
every time I'd see Mayfield, I'm like, hey, MVP, right? And he go, yeah,
Right.
MVP. Because I told him it was my choice to choose you. I mean, I thought the scouts were bitching. I'm like, the guy only gave up one goal against the whole tournament
On a power play.
it
Right.
was a power play goal. Like, what else do you want more for a defenseman? I don't care that he's not going to put up any points in the NHL. He's going to be a defensive defenseman, but that's impressive. It's not always about goals and assists and crazy plays and highlight reels.
Right.
Sometimes you got to reward the guys that do the hard work.
Listen, in question here, just a question in general here with Prokhorov, because of his size, he's already got that NHL size, and we know he has a lot more to do. But do you think he's kind of like a defenseman where he's going to need a few more years to kind of bring everything together? Would you put like a big power forward like him in that same category as a defenseman
Yeah,
of that size? Okay,
certainly. No, he needs 2 more years for sure
okay,
before coming over. Two. And the reason I say that is because he's only in the MHL, so you want to get him to the KHL and play.
right,
He's
Min-
supposed to
right,
play there this year, right? I
right.
believe.
Yeah. So he's supposed to, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah,
That's
right.
really
Of course.
coach's discretion. So, but I'd want him 2 more seasons before coming over. So I wouldn't want to bring him over any time earlier than he's 20.
right.
That'd be or like
Um,
20 would be the earliest. The reason why I say that is he's got to develop a beat off puck game that's more
right,
effective, and he has to work on his give and go because he
right,
doesn't play well in the sandbox with his teammate, his line mates. He's really like tunnel vision, one dimensional. I'm going to take the puck, and I can take the puck, and I'm going to score, and nobody's going to stop me because I'm 6'6". But
right.
that doesn't work in the NHL very often. So he's got to understand how to utilize his line mates more effective to be able to utilize his massive frame and his skating ability and his shot.
I wanted to touch base real quick with the KHL in general when it comes to like developing players. You know, you and I have both agreed for a while it's, the American League, and then now we could probably put college in there, but there seems to be more signings from like 24, 25, year olds coming out of the KHL and then signing in the NHL. What is it about the KHL that these kids it's taking them longer to like finally quote unquote get it
Well, I don't
than
think they're any different than any other prospect, to be honest.
okay,
Like the majority of them require 3 to 5 years anyway, depending where they were drafted. So
right,
this is a normal routine. Like there's always
right,
the exceptions, but the average is like so. If he's a second round pick, he's draft plus 5. Like
right,
that's my earmark. Is draft plus 5 that he'll be in that. He probably could hit the NHL at draft plus 4, maybe half a season, right? Draft plus
right.
5 might be his full NHL season.
But would do you add a year because he's still or and it's not just Prokhorov, it's any NHL draftee that's going to play in the KHL. Do you give them an extra year because it is the KHL and it's
Well, I
not
mean, certainly you might be able to shave off, like, and that's no different than Eklund as well because he's playing against men. Is that
right?
may shave a year off their development time because they don't
Okay.
have the adjustment period that the kids out of the CHL will have,
Okay.
right? So there is an opportunity where he may end up being draft plus 4 and come in
Okay.
as a 22-year-old, and it's his first, like, it's a full season for him. That's a
Okay.
possibility. So,
Okay.
and that's why I say I generally like kind of lean towards draft plus 5. But when you have European players who've already played pro, it tends to shave a bit of that time off. So
Okay.
that would be a guy like Milton Gastron, who Washington drafted as a centerman. He may end up being a draft +3 player because he's
Okay.
just more advanced off his puck. The more advanced you are in your B game, your off puck game, the quicker you're going to make it. So a guy like Prokhorov, I'm more leaning towards 4 years. There's some work to be done in his off puck because
Sure.
for a player like that who's a primary shooter and doesn't have the puck on his stick very much, he might have the puck on his stick 3% of the game of the time he's on the ice. So what does he do in the other 97%? Right? Because he's a shooter. Well, you
Sure.
got to figure that out.
Right.
Right? You better understand defensively and offensively where you need to be so that you're most effective and how to use his size effectively, at an NHL level. But that he may pick that up faster than I think. But
Right.
if his first full season is draft +4, I'd be happy with that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, gentlemen, I think we're done for tonight. Shane, thank you once again for coming on. Where can they find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter, so you can find me at Shane Malloy or at HP Radio, Hockey Prospect Radio. That's really the only social media I do, much to Russ Cohen's chagrin. He's like, hey, there are other social media feeds. And I'm like, meh, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also partially because the show's on NHL Network Radio, so like we get lots of publicity.
Sure.
And if you're gonna listen to our show, you're kind of a geek. Like the NHL Network has its own radio station, and then there's a show about prospects on that show. So not only are you a hardcore, but then you're a hardcore geek if you're
Yep.
listening to my show. So
Busted.
you know,
Guilty.
right?
Amen.
It's and I'm one of them. I'm like, hey man,
Yep.
I'm the ringleader. Like I'm not making
Right.
money, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it that's the show in a nutshell, and we just try to make it as a bunch of people getting on the show, sitting around a pub, having a beer, talking hockey. We try not to complicate our lives, and I try to ask the best questions I can, and then get out of the way. From that
Yeah.
standpoint, and have guests where we can have a little bit of give and go, back and forth,
Sure.
right? In that respect. So yeah, I'm lucky. I have great guests, and I've had great co-hosts, so I've been very fortunate.
Beautiful.
For sure.
Gary, where can they find you? Or do we have an announcement, or where can they find you, or what's
No,
going on?
well,
It's
well,
July.
I mean, I could do the Booster Club announcement if that's all right.
Yeah, go
Because
ahead.
again, the schedule's out, and we're definitely Shane, March 17th, I think it is. Islanders at Bell Center.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're coming.
Wow! On
We're
St.
coming.
Patrick's Day.
We usually do a busload. Yeah,
On St. Patrick's Day in Montreal
yeah.
with a busload. It's
Oh
gonna
wait,
be
is that the 17th or the 24th? I'm asking my wife. It might be the 24th, but we're going there at the end of March.
okay. Because if it's
It's
the
a
17th,
great trip.
Montreal is amazing. It's an amazing place to
We've
go
been
for a
there.
game.
Oh yeah,
So you got
Yes.
St. Catharines, you got Crescent Street. It's fantastic.
Yes.
If it happens to be on St. Patrick's Day, it'll be an absolute gong show. So you'll have a great time.
yeah,
But either way, you'll have a great time.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But we have to get right back home the next day because we have a game. We have a home game the next night.
Well, you just got to play guilty. It's
Yeah.
okay. Just gotta
Yeah,
play guilty.
But-
that's it.
Because if
That's it.
you're in Montreal, hey man, you just let it all hang out. That's
Yeah,
much-
but we're also possibly planning Utah and Vegas, possibly Buffalo. That's right by Christmas time. And again, the Montreal trip is a great trip because we just love going there, and we stay literally like 2 blocks in the arena. It's
yeah,
great.
you're probably
we just
on
walk
Crescent
over.
Street or St. Catharines.
Yeah,
yeah.
Montana, Rula, Montana. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
But
you'll have a
remember,
great-
I owe you a beer when you come to UBS.
I will absolutely anytime.
So, all right, boys and girls, thank you for coming on to Isles Talk here on this one specifically on YouTube. It's our off season here, so if you're going to follow us, please follow us on X at Isles Talk. Follow us and like us on Facebook, and hit that like button here for this video. Hit that subscribe button for more videos in the future. Once again, we want to thank Shane for coming on, and this has been a lot of fun. We'll see you whenever, folks. If not, Gary's going to have to pry me out for in September. I don't follow preseason. I hate preseason. I'm going to hear all the Matthew Schaefer nonsense going on now. He's going to pull me out of off-season moments here. I'm just gonna cringe until then. So
My wife just
blah
went
blah
wah wah
blah. I
wah.
heard her. I heard her. Yeah, love you too. So, alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for coming on, folks. We'll see you soon. Let's go Islanders. Here we go.